that is what we're dealing with, and we need some good communication to know how to kind of navigate that. And really there's two sides to communication. There's the listening side and there's the speaking side, or the what we're going to call the assertive side. So it's being able to communicate your thoughts and opinions. But before that, we really need this aspect, and that is the essentials to good communication. And this comes from a book by Robert Bolton on people skills, it's called. Robert Bolton, People Skills. And the first thing he says is the first thing we need in communication is this idea of genuineness. And genuineness is kind of three parts. The first part is that self-awareness piece. So it's that knowing why we react to the way we react. It's knowing what we believe. It's what we value. All right. So it's all of those things, because it's hard to have good conflict if I cave in on what I believe. All right. Now maybe there will come a point to that, but if people cave right away, you actually don't have healthy conflict, right? You want to make sure that if you have a perspective, well then let's share the perspective and let's get to a place where we can actually glean from that perspective. And maybe there will come a time where, you know what, I didn't see all the facts and so I'm backing down. And so I don't get that. But it's hard to have good dialogue when somebody's so quick to back down. All right, so there's that piece, but there's also that piece of the more we know ourselves, the less we'll distort. All right, and we'll be able to kind of quickly catch those things. So self-awareness is one piece. The next thing is self-acceptance. It's that idea that my opinions and my ideas actually have value. All right, so what I think, what I feel has value, has significance. My perspective is it's just my perspective. I'm not saying it's the right perspective, but it has value. And then the other part of genuineness is to be able to express those thoughts and opinions and to be able to communicate those. After that, then, the next essential is acceptance. And acceptance is realizing somebody else has all those things too. That they have valued thoughts and opinions, and they might be right. So we have to realize that we're not the only ones in this. So putting value really in what others think and feel. Then the third thing we need is empathy. And this is, the extremes of this is apathy and sympathy. And I'm going to describe what those means. Apathy is, first of all, it's that of not caring what somebody else thinks and feels. It doesn't really matter what you think or feel. It's have no value to me. I want to win at all costs. All right? So I'm apathetic to your thoughts and to your opinions. And I don't care about your feelings. So then I'll raise my voice, I'll be sarcastic, I'll do whatever I need to do to be able to win. Sympathy is actually the other side of it, which is just as unhealthy. And that is, I get so sympathetic that I get caught up in what you're thinking and feeling. All right, it's putting yourself in somebody else's shoes a little too much. All right, where you get so sucked into their side that you actually forget your thoughts and opinions. Okay? Empathy is that ability to understand where somebody's coming from and to ask enough questions where you get it, but you still are separate enough where you can be empathetic towards those, you can understand them, you can value them, but you can still hold your own thoughts and opinions as well. Does that make sense? All right, so if these are the three essentials, then maybe I want you to think about which one is your stronger suit, and maybe which is an area that is a bit weaker and you need to learn how to manage just a bit better or grow in a bit more. All right, so think about the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about communication and just how to then draw people out, using our good communication skills to help go through that track. But a lot of that is good asking questions, good listening, and good asserting skills. So if you think about it, usually what happens in a conflict is you've got what I call the iceberg effect. So you have the issue up here, and you have your values and concerns under the water though, and you have your beliefs underneath that. If you think about Darlene's belief tree, you've got it's the same concept, right? You've got the fruit. But I do it this way because there's more under the water when it comes to a conflict. Nobody's going to come out right away and talk about their concerns because of this. We almost always fight at the issue level, okay? So we don't go a little bit deeper to find out, well, why was this such an issue? What did they value that made this such an issue? What are their concerns that make this such an issue? What is their belief about life, about God, about the world that made this such an issue? And so really what we want to do is in any kind of communication, but especially in conflict, you want to try to go down to as far as you can, so you're not solving a problem at the issue level. I have seen so many couples that, you know, if we're involved with people's lives, like I was thinking of one couple in particular, where they have fought about the same thing for probably 18 years. And then they had a huge fight. And they were so freaked out that they called us, but they were like, they unloaded everything. And they're calling us thinking we're like going to be as panicked as they are. And we're like, yay, you're talking. This is a good thing. Like, I think we can get somewhere. Because always it would end here, let's quickly solve this. Patch it up until like a year later when they'd come back to it, because they never solved it at this level. All right, and I find a lot of times the more we know at this level, the more emotion starts dissolving, and you actually start realizing what you're fighting for, what you're looking at. And a lot of times when it comes down to beliefs, very few people, and even values, it's what they value. These are not right or wrong. All right, but maybe you value something different from me, and right now we're having a clash in that. So they say in communication that if you ask 5 questions, it should take you down there. So if you think about it, you don't want to change topics. You want to kind of go from 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. So you want to go down asking questions, but you want to stay connected to the topic, and you want to just build. And people ask me, well, what are those 5 questions? Well, that would be pleasant if there was 5 questions that you could ask. That's not the way it works. So you would maybe ask a question, hey, Anne, what's going on? I can see you're not having a good day. Then she answers that, and I ask a question then off of what she said. Then I ask another question off of what she said after that, and then I ask another question of what she said off that, and that will help me go deeper. Okay? So this is what we're trying to do. This will make it for deep conversation, intimate conversation, and in conflict, it'll actually help us deal with what's the real situation, what's really going on. And by doing this, a lot of times we might find out what got deleted and distorted. All right? By asking those kinds of questions. Here's the problem, is that we all use communication spoilers. These are the things that we employ at some level here, and it stops communication, and people don't want to go further. So here are those spoilers. The first one is judging. So somebody comes and shares something with us, and the first thing we do is we judge them. Well, if you would just have better time management, you'd be able to do this a whole lot better. Whatever, right? So we're quick to judge, we're quick to call it like we see it, but again, we're calling it at the issue level, okay? If somebody feels judged, are they going to want to unload their values, concerns, and beliefs on you?
No.
No. So you've pretty much stopped communication. So as soon as somebody feels judged, there's an end game there. The next thing that people do, and this is my personal favorite, is sending solutions. All right? So somebody comes to you, they share something, there's an issue or something that they're dealing with, and we start solving the problem right away. Problem is we don't even know what the problem is. Because we haven't really dug down to find out what's really going on in their heart of hearts. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple examples of how this works, so then I'll show you why that becomes a problem. And if we send a solution too quickly, we really don't know what they're really thinking and feeling. But we also, it's a shallow solution. And usually, if you ask enough questions and you get down to the bottom of this, people know the solution. They'll be able to figure it out. And you know what? It'll stick a lot longer than you telling them the solution. The next one we do is avoid others' concerns. Oh, I'm really having a hard time with the gray skies here in Montana. Oh, you know, it's okay. Just take some vitamin D, you'll be fine. All right, so we totally avoid somebody's concerns. We don't really know what they're really, maybe they're going through something else. We don't really know, and they're blaming it on the gray skies. All right, so what's happening? What's going on? So we avoid people's concerns. I taught this recently to some SBSers in Taiwan, and it's, you know, we do this a lot as SBS staff. You know, somebody says, "Oh, I'm just so exhausted." "Oh, you'll be okay. Everybody's done SBS. People can complete this. You're good. You're golden." You know, so we completely brush over what's going on when really all they want is a little empathy. And maybe for you to kind of talk with them for a little longer than 2 seconds. All right. The other thing we do is we get defensive. All right. So as soon as
Why did I get defensive?
yeah. So somebody, and this happens a lot in conflict, a little bit more than just communication, but it can happen in communication too. If somebody shares something and our immediate reaction is to defend ourselves. Well, I did that because, or this happened because. And so we are very, very quick to defend ourselves.
One thing I learned, which I'm still learning, is that especially when you're apologizing for something, don't apologize, be sincere, like apologize, be sincere, but don't try to defend or give your reason why something happened the way it did. Just simply apologize.
Yes, there you go.
Because that saves a lot of issues, I think, because it's still you're trying to make it about you if you become defensive and giving reasons why you're doing something or why something happened the way it did. So. That's.
Or I'm sorry, I was like, but. And as
Yeah,
soon as
like,
you added the but, it
as soon as
erased
you
the
add the
first
but.
part.
Which I'm guilty of that, but I'm learning. We're all guilty of it, we're not perfect.
Alright.
But
The thing with being defensive is that our communication can actually make somebody defensive. Alright? It's been tested that when sentences start with why or you, that actually what happens in the brain is all your blood runs to the frontal part, and this is where your social, your social interaction kind of kicks in. And so we get defensive, and it's a fight or flight mode then. We kind of hit that fight or flight kind of thing. All the blood rushes here, and we get into that mode. And so, and you see that. As soon as you know, as soon as you say those sentences, that sentence, well, immediately you set somebody up to fight or flight, or fight or flight. All right, and so usually they're going to defend themselves. So you can start with things like maybe instead, you know, when this happened, this was a bit concerning for me. Can you help me understand what went on there? That's a totally different approach of why did you do this? So we can actually make somebody be defensive by our communication. But being defensive, if somebody's defending themselves right away, do you really want to unload? Do you really want to go to the heart of what's going on? No, because you've actually entered into a battle then. And it's he said, she said. The next one is being right while making others wrong. These are those people that want to be right at all costs. I don't really care what your side is, I don't really care what your opinion is, I want to be right, and I will do whatever it takes, whatever volume I need to say, whatever words I need to communicate, how many times I need to interrupt you, I'll do whatever it takes to be right. And if that's the case, then you're really not going anywhere. Another one that happens a lot, especially in marriage, is justifying own bad behavior with worse. You know, you did this, well, you know what, but last week you did. And so there again, it ends conversation because you're justifying your bad behavior with something else that somebody else did. The last one is dominating tactics, and this one is a little bit more geared to the nonverbals that we use in communication. So dominating tactics can be verbal, it can be your tone, it can be sarcasm, it can be those things that you're using to dominate the conversation. But the other thing they can be is nonverbals, and those in some ways can be worse. Okay? It's the eye rolling, it's the body language that says, I am so mad at you. It's the hand over here, it's the silent treatment, it's any of those dominating tactics that we use that we're actually controlling the conversation when we use them. Because instead of using our words, we're using our nonverbals, and then we're leaving people to guess what's going on. And in marriage books, a lot of times, like silent treatment and those things can be classified even under abuse. All right, it's a dominating thing where we're trying to dominate by using that tactic. All right. So we all use these. I know this information, and sometimes I know I'm using one when I'm actually using one because I've done it so much. But at that point, my emotions are so high that it's hard to actually stop using one. Okay, so we're going to talk about, we want you to think about which one is a bit more yours. But I'm going to explain this a little bit more with this scenario. So I have permission to use a story from Mark and I, so I always like to make sure I have permission for these. This one can go out on the airwaves. So Mark and I, when we were back in Washington going to school, we lived in a place that was not ours, and we had rented it with everything furnished, and it was so not my style of furniture. And it had tile floors, everything was tile floors, tons of windows, and it was so cold. I mean, it's Washington, it's like, it's cold, and it's wet, and it's cold. And so, Mark and I, we were having the battle of the temperature, all right? I wanted things set at tropical, he wants things set at good stewardship. Or cheap. Cheap. So it was funny because I would go down the hall and I would crank it up, and he would go down the hall and he would crank it down. And we would do these, and it was right around Thanksgiving, and Mark's brother happened to be there, which always makes it really fun. And I go down the hall and I crank it up. And he heard me pause, so he knew exactly what I was doing because they were watching TV in the living room. And he goes, "Are you turning down the heat?" I'm like, "Yes, are you turning up the heat?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm freezing." And so then we got into this fight. And so Mark starts pulling out my skills list on me. He goes, "Okay, Dawn, we have been at this now for a couple of months here, for at least a month at that point." He goes, "What is going on? Why is this so important to you?" And so then I could communicate, okay, why this is so important, or I started saying, well, I hate being cold. I hate coming here and being cold. And so he just kept asking me questions, and I don't know the questions he asked me because I'm an N and I forget those things, and I've long deleted those things. But what I know was the final answer was, you know what? This place doesn't feel like a home to me. And when it's cold in here, it feels less of a home, and I just want to go hang out in Barnes & Noble. Mark didn't say a word. He went over to the thermostat and he cranked it up. And he goes, "I want you to feel like this is your home." And it totally took away all the emotion of it. It actually kind of, what are we really dealing with? And then as soon as he said that, I said, okay, well, I could put a sweater on more and I can make sure it's not so hot. So I mean, it completely dissolved it. But this had been a month battle that we had been in, right? So just asking those right questions, not trying to defend, not trying to make his way the right way, let me actually figure out what it was that was so important to me. Because you know what, I'm an extrovert. I didn't know what I was thinking and feeling until I heard myself say it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know what was really going on. All I knew was I hated it being cold in that house.